Hello and welcome to Innovation Lab, your go-to resource for all things biotech startups. Brought to you by the National Cancer Institute's Small Business Innovation Research, SBIR Development Center. Our podcast hosts interviews with successful entrepreneurs and provides resources for small businesses looking to take their cutting-edge cancer solutions from lab to market. I'm Billy Baza, a program director at NCI SBIR, and today's host. In this episode, you will hear advice on how to write a strong commercialization plan from a diagnostics company and a therapeutics company funded through the NCI SBIR program. The first company, Arima Genomics, will provide insights on addressing market, customers, and competition, as well as important considerations for diagnostic startups. The second company, Prevo Technologies, will cover production and marketing plans, commercialization plan resources, and specific considerations for therapeutic startups. To get us started, here's Sid Selvaraz, CEO of Arima Genomics.
Hey folks, my name is Sid with a company called Arima Genomics. We're actually based in San Diego, US, and we are a tools and a diagnostic company. In particular, we work in the area of cancer diagnostics, mostly late-stage cancers. And SBIRs have been instrumental, to fund us, to help us build our strategy, product pipeline, and so on and so forth. And so I'm, as part of the community, I owe it back to the SBIR community. So here's my notes about how to write these grants, and if these are useful, please share with other folks. And this is part of a small community, so we want to just help each other. All right, so in my 10 minutes, I'm going to focus on how do we write a commercialization plan. So these are typically part of phase 2 and phase 2 grants. We have obtained a few of these phase 2 grants, and so pretty much all my feedback comes from writing and rewriting those grants. My focus is, I've tried to be a little bit more broader, because I believe, if you look at all types of investors, whether it is NIH or financial investors or strategic investors, there is a few things that are common that people want to look at. And so what are those common things? Because if you can nail those common things, then you can apply for different types of investors. Because you would need multiple types of investors in your journey as an entrepreneur. And so what are these common items, right? I think the first thing is, what is the unmet need? Often people don't know the difference between a want and a need. The way I try to define a need is, if somebody will act upon, it could be writing a check, or calling somebody, or writing a paper, or doing a conference call, or they need to act upon. And so a pain point that is really bothering a patient, a customer. It could be a patient, it could be a researcher, it could be a clinical trials person. Whoever this customer is, they need to have a very big need that they will act upon, right? So that's like the first piece. The second piece is, there needs to be a lot of these customers. So there's like a larger market opportunity. And the key thing is to look at the product of customers and their usage, right? So that's this kind of product is what we call as the market size. So that's the second thing. The third thing is, where does value reside? Let's say um, if you look at the healthcare ecosystem, um, there could be many customer types. A researcher is a customer type. A physician is a customer type. A lab is a customer type. A biopharma is a customer type. Um, Even within biopharma, there's like researchers and clinical trials and commercial, and it's like a lot of customer types. Now, which of these customer types would be willing to pay you a dollar amount where if you add all your costs, from material costs to marketing costs, sales costs, financial costs, admin costs, all of it, and then if you subtract from what the customer type is willing to pay, do you make sufficient margin? And what you'll realize is different customer types might be willing to pay different dollar values because they're all constrained on a lot of factors. Like for example, if you're selling stuff to a lab that runs a diagnostic test, the lab is being constrained by how much they get reimbursed. So they have a cap on that, right? So they have to make sure their costs should be underneath those caps. And so every customer type has a constraint, different types of constraints. And so you need to understand which customer type can provide you a price that makes business sense to your costs. And then what kind of a product or a service does a customer type want? And can you offer that? So it's understanding where the value resides in your chain of activities or in your customer among the different ecosystem customer types. So that's a very, very important piece. The other thing is what we call a strategy, and strategy is a very, very difficult idea. The concept is, um, what. Let's assume you understood who your customer is, your market is, you understood where the value resides. What set of activities do you want to do to get to that value in a timely fashion in a cost-effective way? That's the strategy. And trust me, strategy is very, very challenging to build. And all these things take a lot of time to figure out. And so a part of this entrepreneur's journey is trying to understand these things. Um, and at last, execution is very, very hard. Um, entrepreneur requires a lot of patience and a lot of hard work to get to where he or she wants to go to. So, in my opinion, these are the five things that are really common. And once you're able to articulate these five things, then you could really be attractive to different types of investors, including the NIH. So that's my kind of a big picture, right? So let's go a little bit deeper. Uh, how do you build these things? How do you understand how much your customer is willing to pay? Where does the value reside? How do you build a strategy? Um, the the feedback is talk to customers, a lot of them, again and again and again, because the the pattern emerges after you talk to a lot of people. Because the first time you talk to somebody, what they say may not be really close to the actual truth of what you want to go. But as you talk to more and more people, then you know you kind of see the pattern. It's just like if you toss a coin 10 times, the expectation of five hits and five tails may not happen, right? Because the end is so small. But once you get to a large N, 100, maybe 150 or 200, then it gets very close to 50-50, right? And so that's why it's all about more and repeat, uh, and document these conversations. And if you have not, please do the iCore program. This is one way to really force you to talk to many customers. Talk to investors. Um, um, Investors are another important piece of the ecosystem. Um, and so talk to them. Don't expect a check from them right away. It takes them a while to build trust, and but get their feedback. They will tell you what is missing. Good investors will tell you what is missing, um, and so that's another critical piece. Uh, Talk to other CEOs and founders, and they will give you a very different perspective also. I think the bottom line is all these conversations will help you to build a hypothesis regarding the various questions we put forward in the previous slide, whether it's like pain points or market size or value or strategy. And once you have this hypothesis, you kind of refine the hypothesis, and the refined hypothesis eventually becomes your story, right? Um, uh, and even if you think you have all of them covered, so go and refine them. Talk to more people. Um, it takes a long time to really build confidence in your story. Other notes, um, try to rather than fitting a technology to a pain point, always focus on the pain point. Because at the end of the day, people don't care about the technology. People don't care about the form of your technology. It's really the pain point. The larger the pain point, the lesser the criticality of other factors. And also focus on your health. It's a worthwhile journey, but it's going to be challenging. So focus on that too. Okay, are there specific considerations for a diagnostic? The biggest consideration is in a diagnostic company, you have to show demand, that the customer is willing to pay for it and use it. And that demand is a very, very critical piece. What that means is you have to understand how to get reimbursed, how does the regulatory framework work. And so this means that to get to data and demand, you will need a lot of time. And so you need some way to buy time. What I mean by buy time? Well, you have to run a company in which you have to pay your employees and so on and so forth, right? And investor money is very, very expensive, so that's not the best way to buy time. A grant opportunity is one good way to buy time. Another good way is to get some revenue. So you could, I like the Amazon story where they focus on a niche, the book market, got the revenue, but also build credibility, and they optimize the product and so on and so forth, right? So focus on a niche that you could access without a lot of complexity, and make some revenue, make some credibility, and then go to your difficult market. Right? That way you have some revenue that will buy time. And so I think that's my single most important consideration, is that diagnostic companies take longer. Um, so keep the time as a key consideration. All right, so let's talk about some sections of your commercial plan. There's two sections we focus here. Um, Company overview and customer and competition. I mean, given what we spoke in the past few minutes, this should be pretty straightforward. The only thing that I wanted to raise is regarding competition. The commercial space is very, very cutthroat. And if there's a competition who is much more well-funded and more experienced, there's way more resources, why wouldn't they come after your market or your product or service? Um, and so that's something that will be a key thing for you to think about. IP is one aspect of it. It's necessary, but may not be often sufficient because if you're a small company and if a large company infringes on your IP, I mean, do you have the financial ability to fight them out, right? So there are other ways to, I guess, build hurdles for them to get to you, right? And so that's why I would look at example by Southwest. You know, at the time when Southwest came, this is large airlines like American and Delta, and they were doing what is called as kind of a full service airplane. Southwest came in and said, well, we're going to be point to point, where we're going to use only one type of airplane that goes from, it connects two cities that are within 1 2 hour flying range, and we're going to stop only for 15 minutes, 15 20 minutes, so that people can board really quickly. There's no real kind of first class, second class, or economy class in an airplane. So it's really the whole execution is optimized to achieve this point-to-point service. But importantly, it really created a hard time for somebody like Delta to actually follow what Southwest does. So because they could not take away. They had already, for example, trained their customers to go after economy, first class, or business class, and so it was very hard for them to remove the classes, right? And so basically they created hurdles, not just one, like a series of hurdles that made it really hard for people for competition to catch up. I think if you can think about both IP but also hurdles, um, and I think that combination will be it's in one powerful way. All right, folks, that's all I want to talk about. My name is Sid again, and if you find this useful, please feel free to share it with other people. And good luck with your startup. And again, please take care of your health and good luck. Thank you.
Thanks for the insight, Sid. Now let's hear from Manesia Goldberg, CEO of Prevo Technologies.
Today, I'd like to share some of my experiences regarding writing an impactful commercialization plan, which I refer to as CP. Your team of employees and network of experts are the key to developing a strong commercialization plan. Significant research is required for this, and your team needs to be prepared in advance. You need to consult with key opinion leaders, KOLs, to understand the unmet medical need that you are going after and how your product can clinically be beneficial to patients. Reach out to contract development and manufacturing organizations known as CDMOs, and also contract research organizations regarding clinical trials. You need to speak with them, provide them with documents that they need after a CDA in place in order to get estimates on what it takes to conduct scale-up manufacturing and clinical trial. You need regulatory experts to provide guidance on FDA requirements. You need to understand who the end user of your product will be and how it will be reimbursed. You don't need to have all the answers right now, but you need to show the reviewer that you are aware of them and you have a plan to get answers. We usually work on a grant 2 to 3 months in advance, since it takes time to conduct research on publicly available medical and marketing data and reach to the experts that I mentioned earlier. Read the grant application, the RFA, carefully. They are important requirements specified in the RFA. Then recognize the strengths and weaknesses of your plan. Be very transparent with your team and let them help you understand what are the things that are missing from your product or from your team. Set up meetings with experts to better understand complex areas such as conducting clinical trials and GMP manufacturing. Reach out to CROs and CDMOs, as I mentioned earlier. These information should be included in your CP. Create a storyboard or a flow diagram to show the path to commercialization, at least early commercialization. Developing the plan is challenging, and we developed a storyboard to describe the big picture of our plan. You need to provide support letters from KOLs and investors. KOLs should be your champions for commercialization. GMP manufacturing is very resource intensive. Be aware of upfront costs, technical and logistic challenges to scale up. Unless you find a partner, such as a large pharma, to take on the FDA and GMP manufacturing requirements, you would have to deal with many requirements from FDA, and you have to learn how to document and submit these to your IND if you are a therapeutic drug. Important information that you need to be included for your production and marketing plan. As I mentioned, it's very important to know about your scale-up and your GMP manufacturing and CMC requirements. You need to give confidence that either you have figured out the scale-up or the CDMO that you're reaching out knows how to scale up. And you need to explain it in a pretty concise manner in a short paragraph. As for marketing plan, study the pricing and the marketing approach of a product that's approved, which is in your space. Use their pricing and reimbursement model to give an estimate of how your product might be received in the market and how it can be priced and reimbursed. Reach out to your business-minded advisors and ask them for a redacted example of their marketing plan. It really helps to have a template or an example. When you write your plan, document and communicate with the reviewers what your product is and how this helps with an unmet medical need. Be very clear so they understand and can provide you meaningful data. I found that reviewers with industry background can be very helpful. With that, I hope this is helpful, and it's a good start, I believe, for your commercialization plan.
Thanks to Sid and Manesia for sharing some key takeaways for putting together a strong commercialization plan. As always, don't forget to check our website, sbir.cancer.gov, for the latest funding opportunities and commercialization resources to support your journey from lab to market. This was Billy Baza from NCI SBIR. Please join us again for the next installment of NCI SBIR Innovation Lab, and subscribe today wherever you listen. If you have questions about cancer or comments about this podcast, email us at nciinfo@nih.gov or call us at 800-422-6237. And please be sure to mention Innovation Lab in your query. We are a production of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, National Institutes of Health, National Cancer Institute. Thanks for listening.